What if you could create a real estate portfolio that allows for awesome vacations and an incredible life with passive income? Well, today you're going to hear from one of our Real Wealth members who did just that. I'm Kathy Fettke, and welcome to the Real Wealth Show.
You're listening to The Real Wealth Show with Kathy Fettke, the real estate investor's resource.
Today, we're joined by an inspiring guest named Karl Dumas, who has nearly 5 decades of real estate experience. He started his investing journey at just 19 years old, using a student loan to buy his first home. Pretty bold move that paved the way for a lifetime of calculated risks and incredible rewards. Over his years of experience, Karl has mastered the art of strategic investing while staying true to a mom-and-pop landlord approach. You'll also hear what his portfolio and passive cash flow has given his family. Karl, welcome to the Real Wealth Show.
Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you.
I just know I'm going to be inspired by this interview, and I know our audience is too. So let's start with how you started at a very young age.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I started investing at 19 years old. I was a full-time college student. I was going to San Jose State University, and I had an agreement with my mother that she lived in San Francisco, and I agreed that I would go see her no less than once a month while I was in college.
Aww.
And on it was selfish on my part, actually, because when I went home, my mom would wash my clothes for me still. She'd cook these fantastic meals, and I'd get to take them back to college and just live off the great food for a while. So I go there one weekend, and there's a for sale sign 2 doors down from where she lives. And I run into the house and I say to her, "Hey, I think I should buy that house. And then I can just rent it out, and sell it after I graduate from college." And she looks at me and she says, "Hey, I like that idea."
Oh, I love
And at the time, I had a student loan that I had just received. I was working at the time as well as being a full-time student. And so I took that student loan and used that for the down payment to purchase the house.
Oh, I have heard this a few times, and sometimes people get real mad about that. But there's no one really checking what you're doing with that money, right?
No.
They just give you the money, and you still
You get the money. Yes. Now, because I was working, of course, it gave me the extra money to still buy books and do those other things that I needed to do. But at that time, that house cost $58,000 in San Francisco. So that's a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, the thing about it is, last year, I looked online to see what the value of that home was, and it sold in 2023 for $1.3 million. Okay.
Why did you get rid of it?
That's a big number.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had sold the house few years after I graduated from college, and I sold it for 4 or 5 times what I paid for it. So it allowed me to invest more in real estate. And that's what really got me going. But it's hard to get past looking at that big number of $1.3 million.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? California real estate over time, when it's well located, even when it's not well located, it's amazing. But, when you were 19 and the price was, did you say 56,000?
Yeah.
That was still a lot of money back then, right?
Yes. Some people don't understand it because I'll say to even my daughter, and I'll tell her things that I did, and she'll say, "Oh, Dad, that was just, look how inexpensive that was way back then." And I said, yeah, but think about it this way. How many 19-year-old college students do you know that went out and bought a house?
Yeah.
If it was that easy.
It's never easy. That's what I try to tell people. It looks so easy in hindsight, but that's where you'll be someday if you start now. And in 20, 30 years, people will be saying the same thing to you. What? You only bought it for 1.2 million?
Yeah. That's the thing. You've got to set out your goals. And then you've got to go out and reach out and accomplish them. I spent my early investment years really trying to create the energies so that the universe could reward me just for being there later on. And fortunately, it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not luck. So, okay, that was your first deal and brilliant. I've heard people use credit cards, student loans. This is risky stuff. But when you, when you, I was going to say do your research. And in this case, you didn't really do your research. It sounds like you jumped right in, but you knew the neighborhood, right?
Right.
And so that's a lot of research right there, just having gone there once a month and knowing the area and probably knowing the rents,
Yes.
So then how did you scale from there?
Well, I moved from San Jose up to Solano County in the Fairfield area because it's a much lower cost of living. At the time, I had a home in San Jose, so I rented that out. And then when I got to Fairfield area, I was excited because they have Travis Air Force Base. And any town with an Air Force Base means there's a demand for rentals. Okay,
Yes.
there's that built-in demand, and that was nice. So I bought a condominium to live in. It was a brand new build. I love new construction, by the way. It was a new build. There were 130 units that they were building, and after I bought the one to live in, I then found out the developer on his last few units, he was having a challenge selling them. And he started offering buyers a new car when you close escrow. Okay. And I went to him and I said, hey, I'm interested in buying another unit from you, but I don't want the car. I want the cash value of the car. And so I used that and I closed escrow on that property. The unfortunate part about it and the challenging part about it was my mortgage payment and the homeowners association dues on that rental property was about $1,000 a month, and I could only rent it for $825 a month. So I did have a negative cash flow. But the way I looked at it was from an opportunity standpoint, the $11,000, which was the cash value of that car that I got from the developer at close of escrow, that helped carry that negative cash flow for years until I could break even. So I was okay with that. I mean, it's still a risk, but I was okay with that. And I remember sitting down at the time thinking, this is the way that I can help ensure my future, because real estate is just a powerful hedge against inflation. To me, it's the best hedge against inflation that there is. You get a very good chance to ensure wealth growth, even in uncertain economic times. And so I looked at it that way.
I love talking to people who have decades of experience because we can bring so much wisdom to people starting out, and we can look at you, and many people would say, "Oh, you're just lucky," but really, it was very strategic what you were doing, and there was a lot of risk involved, and just chutzpah, right? You gotta jump into something. You don't really know how it's going to turn out. It's negative cash flow, you know that. But negative cash flow in California isn't as bad as in other areas. If you're in an area that tends to, over the years, appreciate a lot, Californians tend to be more willing to take that risk. I certainly wouldn't do it in an area that doesn't appreciate, right? That would make no sense.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because when you buy in California, over the course of time, you're going to make out if you hold the property. It's just history has shown that it really works out. And I went on to buy other properties in that same development as well. And then a few years later, when I got married, I sat down with my wife and I said, okay, I have a partner now. I want to buy more real estate. And my wife is very conservative. She's from Denmark. She's very precise with everything and an excellent partner to have because she's that balance for you. And so we sat down and she said, hey, we're going to come up with some criteria for any more purchases of any properties. And so we came up with several criteria. The first one was that we wouldn't buy anything that we wouldn't live in ourselves, because we figured that if we want to live in that property, then other people will too. It'll be attractive for tenants and get an easier time to get tenants. The other thing she said was that we won't grow a portfolio larger than we could manage ourselves. Okay. And we said that it'll be a good way to keep a good handle on things. And so we did that. And then we also said, we want to focus on being a backyard investor. We want to invest in our local community, in our local area. One, because we knew it so well. We knew the types of tenants. We knew how active and how non-active times were. And so we felt better about taking a risk in our own backyard. And that was one of the things. We had a goal of getting to $100,000 a year in cash flow. It took us several years to get there. But once we did, we realized how flexible you have from having additional sources of income. And it's really created a great opportunity for us. We take great vacations, builds a better work-life balance. You have a lot more flexibility when you invest in real estate.
I want to talk about the cash flow because that's why I jumped in with, my story of wanting to take care of my family during a hard time. I wanted to understand this thing called passive income. And a lot of people think they can get it right away, that they could be retired in a year or two. So tell me your thoughts on that and your strategy and when you were hoping or planning to have that $100,000 passive.
Well, we looked at it as long-term investors. We don't flip properties. We are buy and hold investors, and we look at it as usually a minimum 10-year hold period. Because during that time, you'll have different real estate cycles and things will sort of balance out. You'll also get a real good chance to see the types of tenants that you get, how long they stay or don't stay, and maintenance-wise, how things are with a particular property. And then after about 10 years, you also get a chance to realize and reevaluate your property. Because investors have to realize that there is some work involved. It's not just I buy it, I sit home, I collect a check, that's it. Next day I'm a millionaire. It doesn't. This is the long game. This is not the short game, and it will pay off.
So important to get that message out that you were building this nest egg that now you get to enjoy, right? But it took time, and you had a different career along the way that helped pay the bills, right?
Right.
So you're building this next nest egg. So again, what is your wise advice to those who are wanting to be financially independent in their 20s or 30s, at a very young age?
Yeah, I'd say that you really should start. The main thing that I see, because along the way, I remember even when I was 19, I went to my other friends and I said, hey, have you ever thought about buying real estate? Let me show you the numbers. Let me show you what I did. And they're looking at me like crazy. It's like, I'm trying to get through school. Why would I want to buy a house?
Why are you thinking about the future at 19 years old? Who does that?
And later on in life, like when I bought the condos, I went to my other friends who lived in more expensive areas, and I said, hey, come up to this area where I am. The real estate's a lot cheaper. You might have a little bit negative cash flow, but it's going to work out in the end. And again, they're looking at me going, I'm not going to do that. Why am I going to buy real estate and then have negative cash flow? I said, well, if you look at it on an after-tax basis, and this is something that new investors a lot of times, and even seasoned investors don't really look at, is real estate. You have a chance for passive income and passive losses. Depreciation, when you depreciate a property, you create a passive loss. Okay. So you get a chance to offset income. And, I'm not an accountant, and I don't pretend to play one on a podcast. So investors, definitely talk to your accountant. But for mom and pop investors, if you're looking at how to get tax advantages, perhaps you should ask your accountant about being designated from an IRS standpoint as a real estate professional.
Yeah, there's
because
just no better way I know to cut
yes,
back on taxes. We do have so many resources at Real Wealth, so many webinars, if anybody wants to understand that better. But I think it's pretty well known that you can get amazing tax benefits from real estate, but I don't know how deeply people understand that. So please go check out the free webinars, or there's consultations you can have. The
yeah,
resources are on our page at Real Wealth, and again,
yeah.
that's
I mean, that's
realwealth.com.
the great thing about what Real Wealth does. It sort of wraps everything in this nice, beautiful bow for you, and all you have to do is open up the box. You know, there's webinars, there's seminars, there's all kinds of things. I've been a Real Wealth member now since 2017. And the thing I'm excited about is the criteria that my wife and I developed about being backyard investors. You've helped expose us now to why we should look outside of that marketplace. And so we're really excited to look at the San Antonio marketplace. We're in contract to buy 2 duplexes in San Antonio, and it's just really excited about it. I've been on 2 of the property tours down there now. And I got to tell you, you go down there, they give you this big Southern welcome, that Southern hospitality.
With their cowboy boots and their
Yes.
cowboy hats and
Yes.
barbecue, it's amazing.
Yes. And the thing about it is, California now they're changing so much in terms of laws for owners and investors. It's becoming very, very challenging to make any numbers work.
Yeah, the
And
tenant laws in California are terrifying. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we love Texas and Florida.
Yeah. I remember sitting down with the property management side of it. And I'm saying, well, in California, you can't do this and you can't do this. And they're laughing at me. They're going, this is Texas. No, we can do this and we can do this. And I'm going, wow, I'm really excited now.
Yeah, they take it very seriously. If you don't pay your rent, you don't get to stay. It's pretty cut and dry there. So and it was really a pleasure to have you on our tour there in San Antonio. So what did it take for you to, like you said, it sounds like education on the topic and going and visiting and seeing for yourself, but to get over the fear of investing in an area where you can't see the property or drive by the property every day?
Well, it's very different after having a portfolio where you can do that. And I will say it takes time to get used to a new town, but you have to be. I'm a person, and my wife is very much the same way. We like to do our research, so we'll research what are the different types of tenancy that they in San Antonio, for example, the habits that tenants have. Do they prefer 1 bedrooms? Do they prefer 2 bedrooms? What's the turnover like? What's the demand for rentals, the vacancy rate in the area? What's the crime rate? What are those types of things? And it gets back to that whole thing of, as an investor, you set out your criteria, you do your research, you review the data, and then you make a decision.
Yeah.
There's not that analysis paralysis stuff where, you've got your criteria that you set out. So you have confidence in your criteria. And once you look at it that way, you go, okay, it meets the definition of my criteria that I set out. Okay, it's time to pull the trigger.
Yeah, that takes away so much fear. I always tell people, if you're afraid, you just don't have enough information. That's all that is. And so your next step is to get more information. And one of the best things is to understand your buy box. Once you know what you're looking for, the price point, the amount of cash flow, the landlord laws in the area and so forth, really understanding the market. It's so much easier to pull the trigger, just to no, this property fits or this property doesn't fit. And I love that you love new homes, because I do too, especially as an out-of-state investor. A lot of people think you're cheating with a new home. Like, no, it needs to be harder than that. You need to find an old house and fix it up. That's how real estate investing is. And I'm like, why? This is a long-term investment. Why do I want an old property? I want a new property that's going to last over time.
Yeah.
So what has your experience been with new property versus older?
Yeah, I think what what scares a lot of investors is always maintenance on a property.
Always.
Okay. Oh, am I going to be able to fix this up? And if you don't have, as a investor, especially as a backyard investor, you have to have a team of folks. You have to have a plumber, is that you can contact. You have to have that electrician. You have to have a handyman. You have to know some people to make sure you can keep things going. And when you have a new build, you don't have to worry about a lot of those things for years to come.
Yeah.
You're not worried about that CapEx expense of a new HVAC, those types of things that are big hit items to your cash flow. You really don't have to worry about that. And that's part of what gets me excited. Plus, probably one of the other things I really like is tenants love new homes.
They love it as much as we do.
Yes. They love the newer stuff. They really like it. So it's an attraction for tenants. And that's something that I really enjoy as well. Because from a perspective of tenant turnover, when you go from that first tenant, whether they've stayed 1 year or 2 years, the property is still relatively new. And, it's just a lot easier to do a tenant turnover. It's still nice, modern. It's just a very attractive thing from an investment standpoint, and then from a tenant demand standpoint as well.
Yeah. And if this isn't always the case, but oftentimes new builds are in a part of town that's growing, right? That's why they built there. Now, sometimes builders will buy land out in the middle of nowhere and try to sell it to out-of-state investors and act like it's near something. But so you always do have to do your due diligence. But generally, a builder is going to want to build something that can sell, and they're going to want to be in that path of progress.
Yeah. I had an investor once tell me, look, if you go to a new town and you're not familiar with it, see where the closest Starbucks is.
Yeah.
Because if the builder's building anywhere near that, oh, it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Or new freeways, new schools, new hospitals, all of those things. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so let's fast forward to today and the decisions that you made. I don't know how long ago. I don't want to guess, but years ago, you're really reaping the rewards today. And so let's talk about your lifestyle today and these fancy vacations you go on. Is it from the passive income that you've earned from your? It's
from the passive income. We looked at it and we said, well, we definitely want to be able to do some things. We spent a number of years building things up. And so you have to take advantage of it. You can't just stay in the grind all the time. You definitely want to take advantage of things, and it's allowed us a different lifestyle for sure. And we also looked at the other part of it is it gives us an opportunity we have a daughter. It gives us an opportunity to sort of get her acquainted with things. We're starting. We've taken her to some of the RealWealth seminars, and she listens in sometimes. And so we're starting to transition her in because we hope that it's something that we can pass on to her in the future so that she decides to have kids, she can stay at home if she wants to and still have income. It helps create just a really different lifestyle for us. And so as I look back over the years, I'm 66 now. I started when I was 19. That's years of investing and years of different experiences with it that I definitely would do it again. I just love the experience and taking the initiative to take on some of the challenges. Now, I'm also been very lucky. I will say that. And my mother always told me better to be lucky than smart. So I will admit to being lucky, but again, I put myself in that universe and that space for these positive things to happen and these energies. And when these doors were in front of me, I went ahead and opened them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's making decisions when you don't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be, but you have a good idea, right? You done as much as you can to predict. What advice would you give to people just starting out today, like your daughter?
The first thing I would say is really to believe in yourself that it can happen. that you can do this. Because once you start to believe that you can do it, it can definitely happen. And the way to do that is to stay flexible and open to research, okay, and open to learning. As a new investor, I think people are scared off by interest rates. They're scared off by prices and things like that. But whether you want to buy a house to live in yourself or whether you want to buy an investment property, there are many ways to do it. You know, you've talked about house hacking and things like that. When I was younger, I rented out rooms and lived in a house so that I could have additional income. There's many different ways that you can do it. So the first thing I would say, go out and do your research. You know, create some criteria that you yourself feel really good about. And then once you have that, start talking to people, start going to webinars, taking webinars, start going to seminars and doing some homework. And then I think that's going to put you more at ease because like you said, when you say no to something, it's because you don't have enough information.
Yep. Yep. Just learn something new every day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'd also say be prepared to put in some extra time and some additional effort. It's not something that it just overnight will change your life, but it is something that over the course of time, you definitely are laying out a foundation to benefit in the future, you know, and yeah. The last thing I would say is as you get more seasoned in real estate, you do have to remember that you need to review your portfolio every now and then and take a look at it. You might want to change and exchange into other properties. And also you might want to look at it as though you want varying types of properties, especially if you're a backyard investor. You want to own a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. Because it gives you flexibility from a tenant relocation standpoint. We've been fortunate. We've had cases where we've owned a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom, and we've taken a tenant that has lived in a 1-bedroom as a single person. They get married, we move them into a 2-bedroom, and then they have a baby, and we move them into a 3-bedroom.
You've got something for everybody.
Yeah, and so having that flexibility as an investor looking at your investments is a great thing as well. But I think the main thing still with new investors is doing the research and overcoming that fear of making a mistake. Some people have a way of guarding, you know, let's say you wanted to invest $20,000 in something. Some people have a way of guarding that $20,000 so much they forget about what's on the other side of that opportunity that might be $100,000 over the course of time. Yeah. And so they're more willing to guard that $20,000 than they are of doing their research and going and jumping in to get the return that they can out of it.
Yep. And that all comes back to mindset, right? Really understanding that hoarding money isn't going to grow it. You've got to be investing it. Yep. And you know, if people say it's hard, you know, what's really hard is turning 40 and not having your investment started, or turning 50 and starting then. And that's really easy to have happen because life is expensive. And, you know, there's temptations everywhere. It's so easy to spend money. But so if you can be disciplined at a young age, put that money aside and invest when you have less overhead, so to speak, then it will grow. It'll grow over the years. Well, Karl, it has been just such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the RealWealth Show.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Wish you the best in 2025. Keep that real wealth going.
Oh, thank you so much. You too. And thank you for joining me here on the RealWealth Show. I want to let you know you can get the education you need by joining us at our upcoming live event called the Passive Wealth Expo. You can go to passivewealthexpo.com to get more information. We still have some tickets, but it's selling out quickly. I will be giving my housing forecast, and Rich will be doing his focused investor seminar, which people love. It really helps you get focused for the year on how you plan to invest. Plus, we'll have 10 different property teams from around the country come share the properties that they have in their markets, and you can learn more about their in-house property management. for what we call a turnkey investment. Again, you can go to PassiveWealthExpo.com to get those tickets. Thanks again for joining me here on The Real Wealth Show. I'm Kathy Fettke, and we'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any securities or to make or consider any investment or course of action. For more information, go to RealWealthShow.com.